The first people to see the elephant thought it was a mirage. It came at dusk, stepping out of the jungle with slow, deliberate strides, its enormous frame half lit by the dying sun. The fields were empty, the air still, goats scattered. Birds went silent. No one in the village had seen an elephant there in years. Not since the logging roads were closed and the forest reclaimed the hills. But this one didn't raid crops or trumpet in warning. It simply stopped at the edge of the path and waited, trunk lowering to the ground as though listening. Children ran for their parents. Doors slammed. Within minutes, a dozen people had gathered, whispering behind walls and fences, watching the giant stand motionless beside the old tamarind tree. Then someone gasped. "The scar," they said. "It's the one from the flood." And every face turned toward a small clay house at the far end of the lane, toward the man who had once saved it. Years earlier, when the river burst its banks and tore through the valley, the villagers had watched helplessly as a young elephant calf was swept downstream. Its mother tried to follow, trumpeting wildly, but the current was too strong. The calf struck a tree and disappeared beneath the brown water. It was the old farmer, Joro, who went in after it. He was past 50 even then, thin and quiet, but stubborn enough to wade into a flood no one else would touch. They said he followed the sound of the calf's cries until he found it trapped between two fallen trees, its hind leg pinned beneath a branch. He stayed in the water for nearly an hour, hacking through the wood with a sickle until the calf broke free. It was too weak to stand, so he guided it to higher ground, patting its side, murmuring to it over the roar of rain. When the herd returned the next day, the calf limped toward its mother, trailing behind her like a shadow. As it vanished into the forest, Joro noticed the injury, a deep gash along its right flank, shaped like a crescent moon. He never forgot it. In the years that followed, Joro's story became a kind of legend among the children. He would sit beneath the tamarind tree, telling them how the calf had looked back before disappearing, how he'd felt its trunk brush his shoulder, as if in thanks. Some believed him. Most smiled politely and called it an old man's tale. Now that same elephant stood again beneath the same tree. Older, broader, its side still marked by that vicious half-moon scar. Joro was 82 and bedridden. His breath had grown shallow. The monsoon humidity made the air heavy inside his house. His daughter, Safi, sat beside him, wiping sweat from his forehead when she heard the commotion outside. She opened the window, expecting thunder, and froze. The elephant was there, just beyond the fence, trunk swaying slowly as if smelling the air. Its skin was caked with mud, tusks chipped and yellowed. But the mark on its ear was unmistakable. "Papa," she whispered. There's an elephant outside." Joro's eyelids fluttered. "Where?" She turned his head toward the window. For a moment, she thought his failing eyes wouldn't catch it. Then he smiled, the first real smile she'd seen in months. "It found the way," he said softly. Word spread fast. Neighbors gathered on rooftops, calling relatives from nearby farms. The elephant didn't move, didn't threaten, didn't eat. It simply stood there, facing the house, as though waiting for permission. When the village head tried to drive it away with shouts and drums, it took one step forward and raised its trunk high. The sound it made wasn't loud, but it cut through everyone's chest. A deep, rolling note that made the tamarind leaves tremble. The drumming stopped. No one spoke again. Inside, Joro stirred. His breathing was ragged now, each inhale a shallow scrape. Safi held his hand. "Do you hear it?" she asked. He nodded. "She remembers." He tried to sit up, but she stopped him. The old man's eyes glistened with tears. "Open the door," he whispered. "Papa, please." She hesitated only a moment, then unlatched the wooden door. The elephant turned its head at the sound. Joro lifted himself inch by inch until he could see through the doorway. The creature stood in the fading light, a mountain of quiet breath and shadow. It took a single step closer, its footfall soft in the mud. Then another. The villagers watched from behind walls and trees, their fear replaced by awe. The elephant stopped a few meters from the threshold. Its trunk reached forward, curling gently through the air until it brushed the edge of the porch. Joro raised his hand, trembling, and the two met halfway. Human skin against rough, warm hide. For a moment the years between them disappeared. Safi pressed her hand to her mouth. The elephant's eyes closed briefly, the way creatures do when they rest against trust. It stood like that for several seconds, breathing slow before lowering its trunk to the ground. Joro whispered something no one else could hear. Then he leaned back against the pillow, eyes still on the doorway. The elephant didn't leave that night. It stayed near the house, shifting its weight now and then, occasionally letting out a low rumble that vibrated through the walls. When the oil lamps burned out, the villagers saw its silhouette against the stars, unmoving, watchful like a guard. Just before dawn, it turned. It touched the wooden door once with its trunk, then walked down the lane through the sleeping village, and disappeared into the forest. When the morning came, Safi found her father peaceful and still, his hand resting open as if waiting for one last touch. The villagers carried his body to the riverside that afternoon. And as they laid the firewood, a distant trumpet rolled through the valley, long and low, echoing off the hills. Some said it came from miles away. Others swore it was just beyond the trees. Either way, no one spoke. When the final flames rose, a soft rain began to fall. The smoke curled upward, drifting toward the jungle, and for a moment it looked as though the sky itself was bowing. The rains ended a week later. The air turned clear again, and the fields shone bright under the sun. The tamarind tree dropped its first new pods. Children played beneath it, tracing the giant footprints that had hardened in the mud. One of them pointed to the largest print and said quietly, "It came to say goodbye." No one corrected him. At night, when the wind swept down from the forest, the villagers sometimes heard that same distant trumpet, carried faintly on the air. And every time it came, they fell silent, not from fear but from memory. The wild elephant had returned once. It didn't need to again. But they all knew it would never forget the man who once waded into the flood and gave it back its life.